Greetings, Caroline. Welcome to you.
Hello, everybody.
It's just you and me so far, but I think there'll be some people on YouTube.
Oh, okay. That's
Hopefully,
nice.
I never have any idea who's watching. Caroline. Welcome to you.
Okay.
Okay, I've got a.
Hello, everybody.
It's just you and me so far, but I think there'll be some people on YouTube. What have I done?
Oh, okay. That's nice.
I never have any idea who's what. Lost.
I'm okay. I can hear you.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you very well.
Okay, that's great. Good. Well, Stella's in Rwanda this week, so she won't be joining us. But it'd be interesting. She's doing some follow-up research to see the impact that permaculture training has had there, and been going out doing some field visits today. So that's quite exciting for her. And I'm just interested. The more we can build case study evidence of how people are using permaculture and the effect it's having, so we can accelerate make it more available to people, make it more relevant. I've been thinking about so it's permaculture design. So we're teaching about intention. We want to build strategies that help us meet our needs, and we've gone through these. We're now week 22. It's been quite a journey, and I'm really interested to get more feedback from people who've engaged with this. But so at this stage now, I'm sort of challenging to think about, okay, that design process begins with taking responsibility. It begins with a sense of understanding that your first responsibility is to organize to meet your own needs, to take direct responsibility of that. And and even in that small way, that represents leadership. That represents perhaps how we create significant behavior changes. So those are some of the thoughts that I've had before, putting this lecture together. And I'm going to try and, with the intention is, here's Gerald. Good evening to you, Gerald.
Yes, Steve. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Caroline.
I hope you've had a good day. I've just made you co-host as well, in case for any co-hosting duties.
All right, sure.
Mm-hmm. I was just sort of chatting because people are just arriving.
Okay.
So Stella's done her first field visit today.
Yeah, and actually Barnaby told me they had somehow met up.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I think that's I'm taking that as a positive. She really enjoyed meeting him. He's offering to put her up when she's in Huye.
Oh, okay, sure.
So we spent a bit extra and staying in in Kigali, but we can save in the other place. So it's going to be good. And her impressions are, yes, I think she was obviously a bit it's a whole new place and she's by herself, so it must be a little bit scary. But it's really kind of Barnaby to do that because Kigali is quite intense, isn't it? There's a lot of people in a small place, but it's nice as well. Anyway,
Yes, yes. And yeah, I think she has, anyway, she's been to Kenya. Kenya, Nairobi is more intense and fast-paced.
yeah.
So if she's been to Nairobi and coped, then Kigali is not as, yeah.
She was laughing. The
Jamie,
Busia border is quite scary going through that into Kenya, and compared to that, the border into Kigali was like it's a walk in the
Yes,
park. She said
correct.
they were nice. They were actually nice.
I am. You cannot compare Nairobi to Kigali. Oh, Nairobi is, Nairobi is just Nairobi.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very crazy. Lots of people rushing to and fro.
Yeah, yeah,
Kigali, I've been to Kigali. Kigali is more organized.
It's really organised and tidy.
yeah. Okay.
So it all runs on feedback. It's been that's what the Arkleton project has allowed us to do that we haven't done before, is to have the continuity to do the follow-up and the feedback. And I think that's also where the idea of our academy has come about, isn't it? Well, I mean, that's what we talked about back in 2019, whatever it was we wrote the bid, 2019.
Yeah.
So how do you feel about it so far, and where do we go next in your views? Well, we talked about Gerald, but just to warm us up.
Yeah, it's been a journey. It's hard to believe it's already session 22.
Yes.
It sounds as if it's yesterday that we started it, or when we started deliberating about it. So 22 weeks down the road, it's really interesting. Lots of learning, lots of interactions, lots of new voices. Yeah, but by the way, talking of new voices, I just realized that the PA convention for London.
Oh yes.
Yeah, they've put out the banner, and they've since we chatted with the gentleman, they've put me ahead to lead on a session which will be about connecting with the new voices. So it will be me, Gambo.
All right.
Yeah, she will be flying from Australia.
Oh
So she
wow.
wants to participate. Yeah. So it will be interesting to hear those new voices. Probably we could have the likes of Caroline, Debola enlisted for that.
That's very interesting. So the theme for this session is about leadership.
Yeah.
And which is about making your voice and sharing your knowledge and your intent. And that's what, as designers, that's what you essentially do.
Yeah, sure. And also appreciating the fact that leadership, we are used so much to the top-down leadership. How about having the bottom-up?
Yeah.
And acknowledging the fact that each and every one of us has the potential to lead, no matter where you're standing. Yeah. So the ability to lead shouldn't be maybe predefined by the political or social or economic status. It should be a deliberate action, which is like initiated from within, and that means it doesn't matter where the person is standing. It doesn't matter their social or economic status or education. You're all, or we are all leaders.
Thank you very much for that, Gerald. That's the conversation that I want to explore and to unpack. You've that's exactly it. And we talk about this theme as well, but we're in a time of intense change. Random events are happening, like such as intense weather events. Sorry, framing myself slightly better. Let's see the washing rack. Okay. We know that the systems that we rely on are going to be stressed in all sorts of different ways. And if the top-down system malfunctions, we definitely have to organize from the bottom up. And the more organized we are from the bottom up, the better we'll be placed to relate to external resources if they become available to us again. If it's an aid drop out of the sky, how do we organize ourselves to understand that it goes to, it's allocated in a strategic way?
Yeah, and we are always challenged, and I think the likes of Greta Thunberg will remain, challenges to us, especially as we get into these
I've lost you. We've lost Gerald. I think that was... Okay, I wasn't sure whether that was me who'd frozen or whether... I think we've lost Gerald, so presumably he'll come back in a moment. Just keep an eye out for him. So yes, that was a really good start, a really good summary of bottom-up organisation. Right. Okay, we'll just give it a minute. I'll just wait for Gerald. Sorry, everybody. It was a technical hitch there. We lost Gerald. Well, maybe I'll try and get into my flow then. Let's do it like this. Got it. Okay, sorry about that. Until now. Leadership from edges. Permaculture at a time of crisis. So we've been exploring the theme of edges. David Holmgren's 12 principles. We get a unique set of conditions at an edge. We get aspects of condition 1, aspects of condition 2, which creates condition 3, a unique, slightly different set of conditions that incorporates elements of both sides. In our previous discussions and observations, we've seen how regeneration can take hold of edges and succession can build from that. We talked about energy exchanges, gaseous exchanges. Think about leaves and roots and surface areas and how gases and vapors and moisture diffuses across edges. That even the edge between the rock, the terra firma, and the sky is the soil, which we've learned is 50% air. Edges from which fertility comes, new, slightly unique sets of conditions. And think about how different edges interface with each other to create many slightly unique experiences, unique perspectives. So as permaculture designers, we also, in some ways, are at an edge. We're exploring into what lies just beyond. And in that sense, as designers, we're also taking a role as leaders. And I think Gerald touched on it really well earlier, we've been schooled in the idea of top-down leadership and scared to take the mantle of leadership ourselves. In fact, that's in some ways feeling authoritarian, or we need to be empowered to do it. Permaculture tells us that our first responsibility is to look after ourselves, meet our own needs, but do it in a way in which there's a surplus for investment into the community around you, and to build a relationship with the biosphere, with the living planet around us. So in taking personal responsibility, that also then creates a design, it creates a process, and it creates a precedent. So I think there's lots of themes here to be explored, and I look forward to, I hope we can, I think especially with this, has become something that's very much an ongoing conversation about the nature of leadership and also how we support each other in that process. This is like a random graphic that was came up, but I thought that's an interesting point as well. Is if the red dot in some way represents our objective, and that, as Gerald so rightly said, is we might be coming from many different perspectives, different starting points, and we've all got in some ways a unique contribution to bring to this final goal, and that goal being, well, we have to transcend the climate crisis. Life is literally on edge. The very existence of humanity, of complex life forms on this planet, is being called into question by our inability to organize in a way that isn't competitive. We're consuming the natural environment to build up armies to fight off, our sort of fears of shortages. We're looking, never before has the world looked for leadership in a different way from what it currently has, because it's malfunctioning. It's not giving us the world that we need, you know, however we might want to begin to define that. But if we're not returning a surplus, we're running down environmental capital to an ecological capital to the point that the ecosystems are collapsing. And for what end? It's in no one's interest to do that, but yet we're doing it for lack of leadership. The Sector 39 logo, which is here, represents the ethics and principles of permaculture. The earth care, people care, fair share ethic, those interlocking circles at the beginning, at the center, and with the 12 principles around it as an operating system. And then when we created that logo, we created Sector 39, and this was about, in some ways, the S represents me, Steve, is that, and that's my individual energy. Here I am trying to contribute to the world and make it a better place. I'm meeting my needs, but I want to work through community, which is the 3. I want to work with at least 3 other people in community to build cooperatives, to build projects, to create possibilities. That's something that can then multiply 3 squared, you know, have a big impact, and, you know, and maybe spread out and have an impact in the world. That's my idea of, that's the kind of the best I can do, or let's just say that's the process that I've set myself on, and I'm looking to partner, to collaborate, always to cooperate with like-minded people who have similar objectives. So in some ways, that's my personal leadership, and I've tried to contribute in the way that I feel I best can, and etc. So consider the journey that you're on, and consider the values and the intention that you're bringing into the world, and you're manifesting around you, because that's the first lesson in true leadership, is to be, you know, to you know, follow the path that you preach, to walk the talk, to actually be true to yourself, and to be able to articulate what your core values are. We're not in competition with each other. We've got to get past that, and that's a global perspective. And somehow we've got to get past the idea of goodies and baddies, and that feeling that we're in an adversarial environment. So that's my opening thought on permaculture and leadership. And I think we all come from an edge in some way. Greetings to you. Good evening. We're talking about permaculture and leadership, and we're still also exploring this idea of the uniqueness of edges, and how we can, through our own actions, see common cause that unites us together. And that is the beginning of, I think, of our ideas about what leadership might look like. So this is a product of a project that I worked on at Sector 39 in 2016 to 2019, and it's about communicating the contents of the Paris Climate Change Accord of 2015. This was signed in December 2015 by every nation in the world, 195 countries. And just quickly check the chat. Greetings. All the world leaders gathered in Paris. So these conferences, the Paris Accord, is the coming together of the politicians and industry and business and the science. And the scientists saying we need to reduce emissions at this rate, and our politicians arguing. So it's a compromise. And the compromise that they came up with is this map, is represented by this map, that over the course of 30 years, 3 decades, our global emissions of climate change gases will drop from 40 billion tons, actually from carbon dioxide, sorry, from 40 gigatons, 40 billion tons to 5, to net zero over 30 years. Okay, we'll get into the details of it all. But the basic target is this decade. And remember, this was signed in 2015. So we had 3 or 4 years to prepare ourselves to begin in 2020 to collapse global emissions by 50% in a single decade. This was the target that they signed up to. And, you know, we've had the disruptions of the pandemic. We've had all sorts of different things going on. As we find ourselves 3 years into this first decade, the net emissions are still rising. So however we want to describe what's going on is the leadership, the people who have agreed to this commitment to saving our planet are failing to achieve it. So what happens when the top-down leadership is failing us? As a climate change, so this sort of locks us into a degree of, let's say, well, it's going to be, we're all going to be affected by this in different ways, and it will stress our globalized economic systems and weather patterns and agriculture, and we can expect disruption. Okay. It represents a compromise between science and politics, and it's committed us to halving our emissions. And even despite COVID and the economic recession, our emissions are still rising. So this should have mobilized action. I mean, it should have from years ago, but at the point when they signed the Paris Accord, there should have been a commitment then to change education, to allow a different set of ideas to come in from edges, to go, okay, our consumer economy era clearly cannot carry on. We need to think about the consequences of this decision. And we need to keep asking ourselves, where is the leadership going to come from as to steer us into this reality? Because if we keep ignoring reality, we head into collapse. That's what happens. Or, those globalized systems get so stressed, they start to malfunction and they start to break down. So clearly, it makes sense to begin to anticipate and ask the questions to ourselves is, to what degree are we over-reliant on these distant energy-intensive systems? And if those prices are going up of energy here all the time, it's squeezing the whole economy here in the UK. We're constantly now being asked, challenged to simplify our lives in the ways in which we can carry on. And we haven't been really prepared for this, but our society it should have been warning us and schooling us and training us. So I think what we have to see is we have to take personal responsibility. The leadership is going to come from you. And you have to begin to define what the objectives are for your own survival and how you're going to go about that. Now, let's go on. So the first, if we say permaculture is a design process, and you're taking the role of the designer, then you're accepting responsibility. You're going to say, look, I'm part of this. I could blame other people. My situation's bad because of Tony Blair, because of the war and whatever. Those external factors are there, but the response has got to come from you. So let's, and you know, we all perhaps understand this into different levels, but let's just be really clear that this is what they're advocating. This is the core of the permaculture, is the leadership's going to come from you. You begin to take responsibility for yourself, asking fundamental questions about how we're going to organize to meet our own needs in a way in which is functional within the changing circumstances. So all of this about the climate change things, we can forget about that. All we can say is, whatever it is that the leaders are supposed to be doing, they're not doing it. So the change has got to come from us, from everyone, from the bottom up. And it needs to be a rapid exponential change that's built around the ethics and principles of permaculture. So permaculture leadership, this is what it looks like, right? It's individuals defining their ethical and mapping out the ethical framework that they want to intend to work with, and using that to build alliances. Can we define long-term goals? There's the question. If we're going to work together, we've got to understand that there's a mutual benefit from this. And I think we can define long-term goals through the Earth Care, People Care, Fair Share. We can begin to find that framework. Our long-term goal is to meet our needs in a sustainable way without that leading into conflict with each other or the environment. Can we maintain a consistent approach? Can we not just do it in fits and starts? Can we start to build a system whereby we work together in a consistent way over time? Could that then, it has to transcend any individual leader to be sustainable. So the system that whatever leadership system manifests, it has to be able to learn, adapt, and evolve, and be inclusive and empowering of everyone. Because permaculture leadership is us empowering ourselves to take responsibility for ourselves, and in the process enable the others around us to do the same. So again, just to reference that, to put that image there, or I use it, but it also focuses Deborah arriving, I think, yeah. So the idea of S39 is an invitation for us to work together in collaboration through the ethics and principles of permaculture to enable you to start the same process wherever you are. So because the systems that we want to create through our permaculture design have got to have a life of their own so they can evolve. So Deborah's just tuning in from Tapa. So you can take these ideas, Deborah, and apply them to create your own web and network, which you're already doing through your community there. But we have to be able to, I think the power of permaculture is how we can articulate our long-term goals and maintain consistency so that people understand and what they're part of. So it's that, the active, to encourage active participation. So it's that leadership which empowers other people. So this is David Holmgren's articulation of exactly what it is that we've been studying 22 weeks. Is these 12 principles he's arranged as the hours on a clock, and we can see how we move from midnight, red, 1, 2, 3, just like or even you can imagine a wheel, the spokes of a wheel. And so let's think about, at the hub of that wheel sits our ethics. That's the consistent, the thing at the heart of it. So we're inviting people to unify together around the idea of we're going to support each other to meet our needs by organizing through a set of ethics that's easy to articulate and understand, and that we understand that we're doing our best to work towards those. And we've been given these 12 principles or windows or tools to look at our problems from different perspectives, to maintain, as a tool to maintain consistency in our thinking. And because it's arranged in a cycle, it in itself is a kind of a simple design process. It gives us a structured way of thinking. And remembering again that through permaculture leadership, we're inviting people in to share the same perspective. This is our decision-making rationale is informed, and one way of seeing it is through this arrangement. Can we bring people together to have a common vision? So let's be specific and let's summarize, because again, as we're now at session 22 on the PDC, we started to work with these ideas a bit more, and I thought I'd do a summary at this point, and yeah, just to reinforce really that this chain of thought that we've been on. So permaculture and leadership, permaculture and design, permaculture and taking responsibility for how I meet my needs. Within this first step, observe and interact, we were given some ideas, but one of the interesting and challenging idea is that the problem is the solution. The seed to the problem, to solving it, lies within it. And we can flip something that's malfunctioning into something that is productive and functioning. The problem is the solution. We're going to use design to solve problems. We're not going to throw resources and money at problems. We're going to use design to solve them, which means that we're going to ask questions, we're going to observe, and we're going to address the cause of the problem, and not keep trying to resolve the effects, and we're reminded within that principle that we're all individuals and that we're all seeing things slightly differently from a different perspective. And this idea of observing and interacting and allowing for each person has a slightly different perspective allows us to come together. We don't have to all have the same idea, because we all interpret information slightly differently according to our life experience. Observe and interact. And I think that's the first step in the idea of permaculture leadership as well. Okay, so then principle 2 is catch and store energy. And just to really summarize is, life happens in water. Life happens at the interface between water and air, where gases can exchange. So moisture is essential for life. So in our ideas of catching and storing energy is, we want to slow down and trap the passage of water. We want to create ecosystems, soil profiles, landscapes that operate like sponges, that absorb and hold rainfall, and in that process, build soil, reinforce that by composting, and increase the capacity of your environment to hold water. Catch and store energy, that's seeds, it's plants, it's the knowledge, the connections around that. And as we catch and store energy and build soil, we can build libraries of plants and herbs and food forests and our knowledge of those tools. And not just, and in the process of doing it, obviously we learn, but we use these resources also to build systems that support those functions. In other words, as we catch and store energy and we have more resources, we can build more dams, we can plant more food forests, we can extend our energy capture systems, build incrementally. So in terms of leadership, is take responsibility, really look at the problems and see how you can flip them to turn them into their own solution. A lot of your problem solving is going to begin with slowing down the flow of resources through the system that you're looking at. Understand it's all resource, it's all compostable, and we can use that to build soil, trap more water, grow more plants, and develop the capacity of the system itself, and then we can extend the system with the resources that we've created. This is leadership. This is true leadership, because you're building the capacity of the system that you're a part of. Obtaining a yield. 3 tips to think about is you're not just feeding yourself. You're feeding the soil, you're feeding wildlife, you're feeding the predator-prey relationships around your garden, and you're creating a surplus to share with your neighbours as and when you're able to do that. So let's think about obtaining yields. The definition of sustainability is a system that meets its own needs, but it still returns a surplus for reinvestment. So therefore it can grow. And the third thing we perhaps need to think, a reminder, is yields come in many forms, not always as intended. So there's all sorts of surprise and accidental yields. Deborah talked about when she first started her permaculture garden, the children would come every morning and ask questions of what she was doing, and that created interactions that were unexpected. Friendships come from that, ideas spread from that, perhaps a yield that hadn't been planned but can be valued. Leading through by example, starting small, but creating something that people can engage with. As you develop your design, whatever it is that you're doing, the experience of that will give you information in return. Systems run on feedback. This is principle 4, and I kind of think this is the key principle of permaculture. So as you do it, so do you learn. Keep observing, interacting, keep thinking about how you can catch and store energy better. Understand that the yields keep growing, and let that system teach you. Ask them yourself fundamental questions. Is this working? Is it functioning? Are there things that I need to do? Are there things I need to address? What changes can I make to improve the system? Okay, what am I learning? How can it evolve? And be ready to actively accept that feedback, because that's the knowledge that enables you to sustain the system. Principle 5, again, told us to use and value natural resources and services. So the key takeaway point is focus on the available resources. What's right out in front of you, that's what you need to start building your system with. And if we can then build systems that self-regulate, that they can build them, they can grow, they can build themselves. So we start growing our resources. We start a bamboo grove, or we start managing some trees in a certain way, or we start a community composting process. That's allowing people to use and value those local resources. And if we can do it in an empowering way, we can step back and the system will take care of itself. In the same way that a chicken can regulate the pests in a garden, those interactions create self-regulating systems. Principle 6 was the one about waste, about cyclical systems. So design to eliminate waste. Look around you and see what others regard as waste, and see that as a resource. Focus on locally unused resources. And the third one is that includes people. And I'm going to come back to this point because I think this is a really key point, is especially looking to refugee communities, but looking to any community really, is there's always people who are unengaged, unincluded, unincorporated. And as permaculture designers, as leaders, we should be seeking to include people in those processes, create ways in so that people can become involved and engaged. We're live on YouTube, but I forgot to record it. Okay. I meant to do that earlier. Oh, well, never mind. Okay, so and in summarizing these principles, but looking at it in a much more condensed way and through the lens of leadership, is, remember those first 6 were about what nature teaches us. When we observe and interact with nature, we understand about the catch and store energy, obtain a yield, and how things evolve into systems built out of the resources that were there already. So the second half of it is about the design process and how we relate and work with what nature teaches us. So there's a relationship, obviously, between the first 6 and the second 6. So principle 7 is about seeing the patterns, and we're advised to design from patterns to detail. So we want to start by taking a big picture overview. We want to you get lost with the details. The details will sort themselves out later. What are the key elements, and make sure those key elements are in the right place. Once those things are there, the details will kind of fall into place and can be jiggled around a little bit. So this is about design. This is about intention. This is about getting the key elements in the right place. And once you've done that, it will start to flow. We're told again is the natural state is abundance. The sunshine is flooding in. All life on our earth is driven by that energy source. So we only need to arrange key elements in the right place, and the system will grow and become abundant again. That's what nature has taught us in every detail that we've observed. Principle 8. Integrate, don't segregate. Part of the deficiency in our collective thinking, lack of leadership that's brought us to the point now where we're looking at such environmental damage, is because we have segregated. We've created these sort of agriculture deserts of a single crop, and we've removed all the people from the landscape and put them all in a housing project. We've lost harmony of function. It's if you grow up surrounded by a landscape which you can interact with and manage it, and it begins to provide some of your resources, then that's when the self-regulation happens. Integrated communities where we know each other, where we have relationships with each other, then we don't live in fear of strangers. The synergy, the natural flow can allow to express itself. Integrate, don't segregate. Small and slow solutions. So design by increment. That means small step by small step. As you do that, that inspires the people around you. So again, think about the process that you went on, Deborah. You had your training, you came home, you had some ideas and inspirations. You looked around you to see, what are the challenges in my home? What resources have I got? What are my priorities? And you started to come up with a plan. And you started to fit that plan in and around your life in a way in which you created your first kitchen garden, your seed bed, your Lorena stove, your banana circle, is little step by little step. But that drew in the interest of people around you who said, "Oh, what's going on here?" And, a conversation began. Then the fourth step is to allow your design to grow at its own pace, to present its own evolution, rather than forcing it in a direction, is see how it flowers. And it's been so interesting to see how, again, the work that we've seen in Teso, how that's interacting with other villages and other communities, and then we've seen a knock-on effect and a flowering. And that process will go on and on, Deborah, and I want to use this lecture for us all to share our learning, really, and the perspectives that we've gained from this. Each one of us in our work, in our small way. Principle 10, we're reminded, is about diversity, a diversity of crops, a diversity of yields, social inclusion, a diversity of people. And we're reminded in many different ways, diversity leads to stability. Diversity of people can contribute in different ways, come from different perspectives, have different skills. And in everything that we do, we're encouraged to move away from the monoculture, from the single yield, from the reliance on one thing. We want to, by integrating and segregating through our small and slow solutions, we can create a diversity of connections across our community, and then access to all sorts of different resources, and the possibility for us to collaborate more in more complex ways. So this is the bit that we've got to use edges and value the marginal. We're reminded that change comes from edges, and change also, it looks for leadership. It looks for design and planning. Things are moving around. Can we place key elements in the right place? And we've been challenged to reevaluate our goals, re-understand the challenges that we're facing, reevaluate the resources that we have around us. Principle 12, creatively use and respond to change. Change is inevitable. So, and if you like, we exist on the edge of change, because conditions are always moving, but they're moving quickly now. So we've got to use these opportunities in a creative way. Okay, so there's the fact that change is inevitable. We can't fight against that, but there's also the pace of change. It is if we have these climate events or economic events, or things that change will happen quite quickly, or what strategies can we put into place to slow that the rate of change, depending on what it is that we're looking at, so that we have to move with the inevitability of change, but we don't have to just give in to it. We can work with it, but we need to understand the rate at which that change might come about. So change is always challenging, but it always creates opportunity. There's always something that can flourish on the other side of the tsunami, of the thing that grows back. So we have to allow those forces of change around us to inform our design. We've got to use, if we can see a pattern, we can see a way ahead, and we've got to bring that into our planning and into our strategizing. So consequently, we need to be observing and interacting and drawing in new information, and that brings us through the cycle. So I think there's, coming back to that, I also think it's good to be reminded of that, but then think about that wheel. Think about that wheel that's rotating around the axle of these earth care, people care, fair share ethic, and how, as we move forward this process, we can both begin to find improvements and support our own needs, and inspire the people around us to start to do the same. We're going to survive much better as individuals if we're part of a stronger, more connected, surrounded community. I pulled this slide out of a lecture. I should have got a reference for it, but a summary of permaculture as a tool for managing change. So just a few bullet points is, and again, I'm going to just pause a little bit to say is, this is the way I see it, is because we're hitting these barriers, the sort of physical barriers to GDP growth, to climate problem, deforestation, and soil erosion, is we've got to flip. The problem is the solution. So the problem is kind of the way that we understand the world, the way the global mindset, not the First Nation viewpoint, not this isn't like but clearly the driving economic force that's shaping our world is that collective investment in that process, as many of us are invested in against our will, even it has to be inverted, and it's going to take something very powerful to do that. And I think that the only way that will happen by a kind of a global awakening to understanding that this pendulum has to switch back now into a regenerative phase, a regenerative, healing, reconnective phase. And the strength of permaculture is it's profoundly simple. It's 3 ethics and 12 principles. You can articulate it and define it in really quite a simple way, but it's holistic. It touches on every aspect of life, and it's based on higher values. The ethical testing questions within it give it a steering system. It gives us a way to self-regulate. So ecology based is based in the reality of how the ecology of a planet functions, which gives us holistic designs and management systems which we can apply to anything. Potentially, permaculture is an accessible collective endeavor. That means anyone who wants can join, because it isn't that difficult, and you can feel part of it. There are training programs, there's all these resources, there's projects, there's a million ways into permaculture. You just have to look up, and there it is. Permaculture is open to ongoing co-evolutionary change and improvements that benefit all. Co-evolutionary. So it's allowed to evolve. And we need a system that isn't a straitjacket. We need something that can evolve, and we can communicate it very rapidly, and it can evolve without losing its original shape, because it's defined by these ethics, the axle that holds it together. So the final thought that came from this presentation I got the slide from was bringing permaculture into the inner landscape. Thinking about how the zone 00, think about how our deepest hopes and fears, our beliefs, our cultural heritage, our ancestral knowledge, our deepest intuition that we have within us, our fears for the survival of our families and everything, our inner landscape. And let's think about the relationship to how permaculture allows us to express that into our lives, into our communities, and to make that part of how we would create harmony around ourselves, and hopefully create a wave of an awakening across the whole of humanity. I think the world's ready for it. A different kind of leadership, a leadership that comes from the bottom up, a leadership that comes from your heart, a leadership that comes out from that through your actions in a simple, holistic way. Can we communicate that? And can we use these ideas to bring ourselves together? So that's what I want to propose that we do. And I want to use the second half of this lecture to go further into this idea about how we build a project that brings us all together so that we start to act as a system in a peer-to-peer learning environment. So I think I got this. This is from the Harvard Business School, I think. I can't remember. I jumped around, got slides from a few sources. I should have referenced them better. But anyway, leadership for a sustainable future. So I like these kind of hierarchies of ideas. So let's say, in terms of leadership, that must manifest itself firstly in actions. So, hey, I'm the leader. Let's all go over there. And but why? Why would you be motivated to follow my actions? Well, my actions are part of a plan. So for people to understand the command, hey, go over there, do this, do that, they need to understand how that action fits into a wider plan. So the first step of leadership then is to understand that what you're requiring of people has to fit within. Maybe those actions begin with yourself. Remember, the first person that the leadership comes from, how the instructions that you give to yourself. So your actions are strategic, they're part of a plan. That plan actually comes from a design, from ideas, from long-term strategic thinking. Okay, you didn't just come up with that plan on the bus on the way home. We're talking about building systems that sustain ourselves. We're talking about being able to be resilient to face the shocks that are going to come from climate and economic shocks that are going to come from without. Our ideas and designs are actually shaped by feelings and passions and our own inner motivations. And those very things are shaped by the worldview and the values and beliefs that we bring with us. And this is really then to our leadership model, is to understand that we're going to form deep and strong and long-term alliances with people by drilling down to those ethics and principles, that worldview, the values and beliefs, the things that define us, the axle of the wheel that is the permaculture principles. So we have to build really strong alliances around these far-reaching but deeply held our beliefs, and that creates then a way then that we can channel our ideas and actions into our ideas and designs into actual plans, which then manifest themselves in actions which lead to good things happening. So, leadership for a sustainable future. I found this quote from John Quincy Adams. I didn't know who he was. He was an American politician and diplomat, a lawyer and a diarist. And he served as the 6th president. He was the 6th president. There we go. Of 1825. He previously served as the 8th United States Secretary of State. Well, good on him. Okay, he said, if your actions inspires others to dream more, learn more, do more, and become more, you are a leader. So I liked 1825. I like the idea that, leadership comes from your actions to be inspirational. And that comes from being consistent within those permaculture ethics. People can understand your motivation. So we're talking about change, leadership at a time of crisis, leadership from edges. We need to plan, but we also need to be ready to shift gears, to move up scale, because we don't know what's coming over the horizon. So here we are making a plan, We've been through this whole permaculture learning process. Many of us have got involved in our own projects. And I guess what I'm inviting us now is to, with our academy ambition, is let's think about how we can accelerate permaculture learning. This is again, researching around and is in the face of a crisis, quick action can keep a crisis from escalating into a disaster. What do we do as we face increasing challenges? We try and make quick action, and we try and head off a bad situation getting worse. Although you won't have all the information or resources you need, it's imperative to act quickly and deliberately. Work with your team to assess the situation, gather input, and formulate a plan. So look, there's a crisis, there's a weather event, everything's washed away, or there's an energy problem, there's something happens. We have to take a quick assessment of the situation, and we won't have all the information, but it's important to begin action and to work with the team to assess the situation and build a plan. So you can think about that as individually, how we might act as a family or a community or within work, or depending on the context that we're in and the nature of the crisis. So what permaculture principles? Permaculture teaches about leadership. The 12 principles of permaculture offers insights that go beyond their design and agricultural origins and into the realm of leadership and life itself. So we've used these ideas to understand how we might plot a garden or how we might arrange a community, but you realize that through engaging with your zone 0, with yourself, with your intellect, with your soul, it gives us a direction for life, for leadership. I think that's a very powerful thought, and I think it needs to give us clarity as if we're facing an understanding we are facing extreme challenges. So we've got to a hole with these ideas because these are the tools that we've got to affect change. So we're reminded, use small and slow solutions. In the face of injustice, in the face of crisis, it's tempting to scream, revolution, and hope for overnight changes, that something's going to happen and we're going to set it all right. The only genuine revolution is seen in hindsight and is preceded by countless small efforts taken over time. Even if at first glance it seems like there was one catalytic event that tipped the scale, it's the small and slow solutions that make that always that win over. It's the being consistent. This is the staying within that ethical framework. Using those principles means that we're consistent, and over time we win. Slow solutions are equally important if the changes we seek to bring about are to have genuine buy-in from everyone around us. We can't just broad scale impose things on people. We lead by example, we set things in motion, and those things that work will be copied and replicated really quickly. That's why there's no copyright on permaculture. We want people to steal the ideas. We want people to be inspired by it. We want people to initiate as many small and slow solutions as possible. So think now across the whole of Nachi Valley. Think now across the whole of Kakuma. Can we initiate thousands of small and slow solutions? Can we make many individuals feel empowered to express leadership in that environment by taking a degree of control over themselves and looking to organize resources around them strategically so they can begin to capture, store energy, develop yields, and use those yields to construct systems that become regenerative? That's the question we're asking ourselves. And if we can do it in Kakuma, then we can do it kind of anywhere, creatively use to spot and respond to change. So here's how our sort of permaculture action plan is. If there's a crisis, we've got to take action. We won't have all the information, but we need to do something. And then we use our connections, our team, to gather input, formulate a plan. We're going to focus on our principles, especially going to think about, we're not going to solve things in one step. We have to initiate as many responses as we can, but they need to be harmonious. And we're going to creatively use and respond to change. The saying goes, the only thing that is constant is change. Is it good, bad, indifferent, progressive, or status quo? That the caterpillar becomes a butterfly, or is it simply change? How we respond and are able to respond to change plays a part in how we ultimately categorize changes in our lives. As leaders, remembering that we are all leaders in our own way, we always have some measure of capability to respond creatively to change. So, as a summary of ideas pulled out of a permaculture lecture, which I will reference on the website, about using permaculture ideas to think about our relationship to change. And then, when I was researching this, I thought about leadership in a different context, and I came across some thoughts on leadership from Harvard Business School, from a totally different kind of environment from permaculture thinking. And I thought, let's see what we have here and what we might learn from that. As a leader, dealing with change, with challenge, is advice. First set of advice is around communication. During a crisis, there's typically a lot of noise out there. Make sure your team understands day to day what they need to do and why. Address your team's concerns directly. Now, this sounds a little hierarchical, okay? Like, I'm the leader, I'm in charge, I've got my team. But let's think about how we work as a team, and that your team is going to function through good communications. And that's going to be the responsibility of you as a team to focus on the key things. Address concerns directly. Don't contribute to the background noise. You know, we all had COVID. We had the lockdown happen. It was a crisis. There was so much background noise. Is it, not knowing how bad it was, how much we needed to be scared? And it's important to be effective, that we share the information that we have and say, look, we don't know how bad it is or whether it's a real threat, but we'll focus on what we can do. We can wash our hands, we can reduce our contact, and we can understand why we're doing it. Okay? People will have concerns. We need to talk about and address those concerns. Don't add to the background noise by sugarcoating or amplifying the situation. We don't need to make it worse. If it is difficult news, just be honest about it. And again, as we enter the climate crisis, we're going to be confronted with difficult things. We're going to have to be frank and honest about that. Establish a communication routine and stick with it, even if there's nothing to say other than there's nothing new. I wonder about a communication routine, our Tuesday evening sessions, and ask the question is, should we maintain a communication pattern so that we remain in contact with each other as the Academy of Permaculture, as our collaboration, however we see that. When communicating, let's celebrate progress, communicate progress, even if it's only minor. But we don't want to create despair, and we want people to feel empowered to contribute. Communication should be two-way. Listen to what your team is saying and not saying. The information that you pick up could surprise you. So we're trying to get away from top-down Harvard Business School thinking, but we can see at the heart of what they're saying is this is about good communication. This is about everybody listening to each other properly. This is about not sugarcoating information or contributing to misinformation. It's about remaining focused. Lead with compassion. This is not a time to move away from our kindness and caring, even if your brains nudge us in that direction. I can tell you, as the economic crisis has intensified in the United Kingdom, the government is using every tactic to make us want to blame each other for the problem, where the divide and rule is really coming in strong. And we can be easily drawn into that blame culture. This is not a time to move away from kindness. One thing that the coronavirus pandemic has shown us is that the crisis is mentally, emotionally, and physically draining. So each day, as you weigh your priorities and decisions, take the needs of others into consideration. Lead with compassion. Be on the lookout for burnout in your team and in yourself. Take steps to protect against it. So if we lead as individuals in supportive teams with a mutual compassion from each other, we can tell where the burnout is, where the stresses might come. Manage the post-crisis new normal. Well, after a crisis has abated, you should expect a new normal, new processes, strategies, and culture to evolve. Well, January, you're there. As a refugee, you're forced into a new reality and then emerge into a new normal, a changed world, a changed location, a different set of priorities. We have to now learn and adapt and create new strategies to suit the new normal. Adjusting to the new normal, both emotionally and cognitively, may take a while, but it's your job in your leadership, the way that you contribute, to help your team recover and heal. Once the most immediate and challenging aspects of a crisis are under control, think about the kinds of crises that your organization is likely to experience in the future. Now, this sits within our bio-regional organization model to begin to assess future threats. What should you and your team be doing to prepare? What worked well this time? What not so well? Are there any preventative measures you can put in place to help to keep the crisis from occurring again to begin with? So guys, the new normal is you just had really heavy rainfall and that washed some of people's gardens away. What can we learn from that? Are there any preventative measures that we can put in place to keep that crisis from occurring again? We have to allow ourselves to learn from these things that happen and then bring that perspective into the new normal. And we're entering a changed world. 9 leadership tactics from Harvard Business School. I don't think any of this really, I might use slightly different language, but I don't think any of this really conflicts with our permaculture thinking. 1, learn from other leaders. Work to build skills. Believe that you are a leader. Take up more tasks. Share your ideas. Listen to others. Learn to delegate. That means you hold the responsibility, but you pass on the job to someone else, and then you support them to say, are you managing? Is that okay? Did you achieve that? And then that way you're empowering people. Good leaders empower the people around them by delegation. So treat other leaders with respect. You need to learn from other leaders, and for the know that there are many different types of leaders. Again, embracing diversity, use and value diversity. There's our permaculture principle. People are going to come at this from different angles because they have different perspectives, different life experiences. We're not in competition, we're here to work together to cooperate. And as existing systems become stressed or fracture, we're going to be challenged to organize much more from the bottom up ourselves. I think we're getting about time for a break, and maybe just any thoughts or feedback from anyone. I've got launched into this, but it's yeah, I'd love to just hear a few thoughts before we perhaps have a short break.
Okay, yeah. It's really interesting. And as I said before, the network kicked me out. Something strange happened and I got kicked out. It's always interesting, especially when you're looking at the new trends, the likes of Greta Thunberg coming into the picture and, taking on the mantle, challenging the those huge giants we would think about. And surprisingly, they are not even, scared of whatever the consequences, because they know what they are defending or what they are standing for. It reminds us that either you stand for something or you fall for everything, or you actually fall for nothing. So it's always interesting. Caroline has put in something that delegation is where I have challenges, especially because people do not like volunteering, as I volunteer and even use my resources. Yes, and the first step to volunteering, or the first step to delegation, is making sure that whoever you're delegating to buys into your idea, that they have nearly the same wavelength or the same vibrations, call them, or the same vision with you. Otherwise, where there is any mismatch, you're likely to get such challenges. But also, it would be good to sort of initially, before people getting to the level of delegation or to the level of having them take on your vision, to give them probably mentorship or guidance peer-to-peer. And it's from those that you see that are most active or most in line with your vision, that you can start thinking of delegating. Or even they would be so much willing to volunteer in any case, because then they have the vision. They are looking beyond the money. They are not chasing about only the money. They are looking beyond, just as you're doing. Over to you, Steve. But anyway, one other thing I've also learned from, if you can read about the setup of the Extinction Rebellion, it was really interesting. And it was one of the ways in which you saw sort of decentralized leadership by virtue of the activities that were going on, and then the volatility that was involved. because at any point a leader could be arrested as they would go out demonstrating. But then instantly within the line, another person would take on the leadership, or even without necessarily being told that you are the one next. So it's really interesting. And these are some of the case studies or scenarios that we could, pick leaves from, even from during our day-to-day programming. Over to you, Steve.
Yeah, thank you very much, Gerald. And I think that's what I'm trying to understand, is to express our own kind of model of resilience in the same way as you say, the Extinction Rebellion. And I think I'm going to link us back to our bioregional organizational chart and ask ourselves, can we use a tool like that to organize ourselves across a project that includes all of us? I want us to work together. I think can we find a mutuality between us so that we can create a collective action? And that's what I want to support. That's what I want to explore. Any other contributions before we just have a short break? You're all very welcome. Okay, well, let's just pause for. I'll be back at 5 past. I just need a couple of minutes, and we'll pick up from there. But I'll see you in a few minutes. Okay, I'm back if anybody wants to chat or share any thoughts. I'm looking at leadership because I'm asking the question, how do we work together and how do we collaborate? And can we see a framework how we could do that? And I think we each are challenged to exhibit leadership within our own community, and but also as together, as through our permaculture collaboration. It's noticing Stella arriving. Hello, Stella. We'd love to hear from you. Hope you don't know how your signal is there. We're just having our mid lecture break just for a couple of minutes. We welcome you there, and welcome to Simon as well. Aha!
Thank you. Hi to everyone.
Hi, how's it going?
All is great. I've been in the field and it was great. They really have a lot. They have done a lot of things this side. And when you look at their topography, it really required the permaculture knowledge because they do not have a flat area. So everything has to go slopey, raise, go, So most of them have really implemented the training they did. For example, digging the swales, mixed cropping. They've done mixed cropping in their gardens. But they told me that earlier on they used to do like monocropping, but now they have a lot of crops in the garden. So you'll find that one garden is having over 10 and more variety of things. So they really have a lot in their gardens. They have a lot. Already they are harvesting others, yet others are still down. And then I was so much inspired by the way they integrated the potato planting. It's something I'd never thought of before. They have the potatoes in the same garden with other plants like maize and so on. So these potatoes, the potato vines, act as cover plants. So amazing. Like, they really have a lot to share. And they've also done more of water harvesting directly to the hole. Like they have dug holes where they harvest this water and they use it in a long run. Really so nice. Yeah, there is a lot. So I expect to learn more tomorrow again. Sure. Yes, I took some photos. They will be shared shortly. Let me tell the person to send them. I'll share with you guys.
I'll put some photos.
Thank you.
On today's page. Thank you, Stella. That's so it's so good to hear that. And it's such a a tortuous bus journey. So you got there, and so this is the example really of what we're doing is supporting the spread of that knowledge and one person inspiring another, and learning from each other as we go. So I'm also excited to see how these ideas are translating in different contexts. And so if we're moving towards thinking about how do we initiate demonstration and training hubs to really flower and take root in Nacha Valley, at Kakuma, and then from anywhere else, is let's think about that process and think about that demonstrate, educate, replicate process. Okay, I'm going to jump back to the presentation. And this is another presentation on YouTube that I allowed to inform this lecture. And we're given a sort of a perspective on moving away from old models. That I see that. So the old model is, as we're socialized, we sent to school. How we behave is defined by the dominant culture around us. We're not challenged to learn for ourselves, to observe and interact, to learn from our own experience. Our world is defined for us by the religion, the politics, the economy, the society, the educational environment, the work environment that we're in. The old model is to focus on problems. And we create social institutions that exclude people. You have to be a member, you have to join, you have to be clever enough, you have to pay a subscription, you have to have the right connections to join. We need to move away from these models. We don't want to create exclusive societies or to define things by their problems. We want to define things by their solution. Can we create a new model that is not about socializing people, imposing ideas on them, but enabling them? Enabling those people to create, to define, and define the problems, create their own solutions, and initiate responses. Instead of focusing on problems, can we focus on the design, the redesign that then solves that problem, addresses that problem, resolves that, creates new possibilities? Instead of creating exclusive social institutions, schools we have to pay for, things that we have to have a membership for, can we create participatory social institutions? We want to create things that people can join and allow them to come and be part of, which enables them to problem solve and redesign, to create new possibilities. So as permaculture leaders, we want to move away from these traditional old models. Behavior is imposed. We want to enable people. Look, here's these amazing permaculture tools. You go away and see what you can create with them. And together, we will create social institutions, that's clubs, that's membership, associations, anything, so that we can share that experience and support each other. This is our new model. This is what we're working towards. So I think this is kind of getting to the end of what I wanted to say and edging into what comes next. So there's our invitation. Let's create some participatory, inclusive social institutions. That's our academy. That's your Tapa project. That's your Nachi Valley permaculture project. And think about how these can operate at different scales, local and global. So I want us to work together. And I want, through our connections and our conversations here, so we can connect to the whole of Teso, the whole of Homer Bay, the whole of, how do we build relationships to work effectively together with these different groups of people? Okay. First thing I want to say is, not by expecting us to give you money. We're not funders. Permaculture, Sector 39 are not funders. So don't just ask us for money. I know our solution, Steve will buy us seeds and tools and what have you. We're not in a position to do that. We are a training and education and facilitating partnership. So the question you need to be asking is not, can we have some money please, but is, how do we work together to build a common vision that someone else might fund? A funding organization, someone with money can fund. To do that, we need to create a clear vision through our commitment to permaculture values. So yeah, the answer to your question, but is the challenge that you face, Caroline, that was illustrated by your question, is it's getting that buy-in to this vision, this commitment to these values. Otherwise, why should I volunteer? And I think that there's always the assumption that we need to be directly financially rewarded to participate. The question is, how do we meet our own needs? And we're going to start by thinking about ourselves, and we can communicate that with a clear vision. Hopefully we can bring people on. So I would say our long-term goal is creating a mutual support network. I want to support and thrive where I am, and you want to do the same. How do we do it in a way in which we help each other? Mutually beneficial relationships. That's the heart of permaculture. measurable outputs that meet needs. Is that, you seeing that? Gerald, sorry.
Yes, Steve.
You see that okay?
No, you haven't shared yet.
I just realized. Oh, it gets confusing. I'm juggling to all these screens. Okay.
Yes, it's shared now.
Okay.
Though it's not in presentation mode.
Oh, God. Okay, so just give me a second to.
Okay.
Share screen.
You can simply do the presentation mode down at the bottom,
Yeah.
right-hand corner.
Oh, that's it. Can you see it now?
Yes.
It's gone to the first slide. Yeah. Okay, sorry. It's because I'm juggling between two screens and I get confused. So we talk about permaculture as a tool for managing change. That's how we're going to come together, and that we're going to unite around this worldview and belief and our deep feelings and passions. And if we can connect with that level, then from there people can understand where they sit within the plan, and therefore they're motivated to do the actions. We went through this Harvard Business School. Okay, so sorry, I've been going through some scenes. So the old model of a socialized system, we've got the school, the community, the church, the job, define your values, focus on problems, and we have to join exclusive institutions to gain knowledge about how the system works. We don't want that. We're rejecting that. We want an enabling system. We want people to feel responsibility for themselves, ability to learn, to see not problems, but the chance to resolve those problems. And we're going to resolve those problems by having social institutions that support us, credit unions and cooperatives and educational and support enabling institutions that take away the barriers to our progress. And I think easy to say, hard to do. But as leaders, we have to motivate the people around us. So I've got to the point when at the end to say, how are we going to work together? And that's our invitation, and that's what I want us to do. And my first reminder was, we've had bits of resources in the past. We've been able to help people in small ways, but we're not funders. So just expecting us to be the financial source is misunderstanding what Sector 39 is. But what we can do is we can work together to build a common vision that I think could attract funding. And I told you last week about looking at this United Nations refugee program bid that we could perhaps think about applying to that. If we can have a clear vision around our commitment to these permaculture values. And I was just saying, I think our long-term goal is to create a mutual support network. Looking at this fund, but also, as I think this is a good lesson for us to learn is, yes, through our mutual support network, we need to create measurable outputs. So there's Stella currently in Rwanda seeing the outputs of the training and quantifying those. But what's so important is those outputs, the result of the training and the support, were defined by the stakeholder group, by the people that we're trying to reach out and support. So it's you guys in Nachivali, it's you guys in Rwanda, it's you guys in Kakuma, the leading edge, that you define what your needs are, and the network gives you the support and the tools to fulfill that. Our network needs to be able to learn and evolve quickly. I am seeing nothing less than a transformation of our society and our economy through permaculture. And I honestly believe the leadership, the energy, the dynamism that will make this happen will not come from the top. It will not come from the leaders. It will not come from the big corporations. It will not even come from the big NGOs. It will come from you by leading through your own actions and understanding that if we can network and if we can allow ourselves to embrace the new and changing reality, we can create a transformation. So your primary goal is to work from yourself and to meet your own needs, but to understand that we're part of a global shift. That's, I think, is the vision of permaculture. That's what Bill Mollison had in mind when he started the design course. Is he's realized, oh gosh, we're going to have to spread these ideas very quickly. We don't have as long as perhaps we thought we have. And that's the position that we're now in. So I'm asking the question, if you want to come and join us, be part of this Sector 39 network, your own autonomous organization, but through ideas and mutuality, we can feel that we're part of something that's bigger. That's my, and then, you know, back to our bioregional organization is, this is quite a good, this to me offers such a sensible and ready thought out structure that we can begin to organize around. The food, buildings, livelihood, social support, health support, etc. That if we start our bioregional organization by us coming together at the Academy, we are then go home, go back to where you are and begin your bioregional food support plan. What are you going to do in your location? What are you going to do in your location? Our conversation unfolds from that. Okay, I'll stop the share and love to hear any kind of thoughts. I'm pushing out to you guys. How do we work together to create momentum in the situation where you're in, and so that we create a network that can inform itself and evolve and grow? Gerald, would you like to take the chair for a moment? I'm just going to have a bit of my dinner.
All right. Thanks, Steve. Yeah, sure. Members are welcome to contribute to, you know, give your thoughts. Caroline, was my suggestion or proposition helpful regarding delegation?
Yes, it was. It gave me a lot of insight, and yeah, it gave me a lot of insight. Though, because I've been working with the community for the longest time, yes, what I've come to realize most of the time is that, okay, I think also it's the hardship, the financial hardship that sometimes hinders people from maybe doing what they would want to do. But yes, what I took away with me from your suggestion is that find a like-minded person and you will go a long way. Thank you. Then what we have just been discussing right now, how we can work together with Sector 39. I've written something there that maybe Sector 39 can be the coordinating factor in all this, but all of us in our own individual spaces, we can train and train people for transformation. We can teach people about permaculture, food forest, climate change, because all these things are intertwined together. So, so long as we each play our own part, I believe we can be able to work in such a way that probably we can attract funding probably for you know, we can attract funding for self-made or projects that make sense to permaculture, that can address climate change, can address food security. Thank you.
Thanks, Caroline. And yes, our commitment from our end as Sector 39 and the team is more on the capacity building, is more on empowerment. But then, as today's theme is, you're the leaders in your communities, in your societies, and you're taking on the mantles. We are in the background to support you to build the necessary capacity. And as our long-term vision for the Academy, to ensure that we equip you with the tools. By tools, we mean the knowledge, we mean maybe the, let's say, the links and connections to you to be able to take on that lead. Any other, thanks, Carol. Any other points, any other comments or suggestions on both the leadership aspect and then also collaborative working, especially with the Sector 39 or more specifically the Academy? Thank you, January. Okay, agreed with, I'll read that out. Agreed with Caroline, Sector 39 can be coordinating us. The group is inclusive. Permaculture, education, yes. Inclusion is at the center of our work, and we make sure to incorporate all that we do train, yeah. Inclusion and you know, all the other aspects. Sorry, I had a bit of distraction. Simon, Deborah. Okay, you're welcome, Deborah.
Hello.
Yes. Hello, everyone.
Yes, Deborah.
Karibu sana, Deborah.
And we find, yes, it is really challenging on my side, on the side of leadership. Like Steve John says, delegation. Sometimes when you delegate, it's also on my side. It is also challenging on my side that, during registration of chairperson, didn't delegated someone to go on to register the group. So we needed also to address on the issue of leadership on the side of Tapa. Then I wanted also to support a point where Caroline mentioned Sector 39 to go on coordinating on education concerning permaculture, deforestry, and climate change. Thank you so much.
Yes. Hello.
Yeah, yes, January, you're welcome. Thank you, Deborah, and welcome, Upale.
Yes, yes. How are you, everyone?
Fine, and you?
I'm good. Yes. Yeah. I'd like to add for Madam Caroline what she was talking about. You know, as we are leaders and we are under education, we want to learn from Brother Steve, and we don't have any anything that we can share than to agree with Madam Caroline, because Sector 39 can be coordinating us, and each group can run or train their groups. Only that what we can share, we can do and support our communities, because even here in Kakuma, we have some challenges, but only to start. And what I congratulate on that course is to learn, because we was out the network about permaculture, so we want to learn and to teach each group about permaculture. So thank you very much, and I agree with Madam Caroline. Thank you.
Thanks so much, January. And as you mentioned, inclusivity is at the center of our work. Remember,
Yes.
integrate rather than segregate. If we are emphasizing that, so should it be in our day-to-day operations or relations or collaborations. Thank you. And if anyone else has any thoughts, Simon, Joseph, otherwise we'll be handing over to Steve to proceed with the next session.
I'll kick in a couple of just thoughts, and then it's really open now for people to talk a bit more. Yeah, so Sector 39, we can maintain, I think, a kind of an overview or a consistency of, that bottom layer that we had in the presentation, that these values, this long-term value set and commitment to permaculture, that's the thing that binds us together. Okay, and that's our responsibility as people who share this planet together. So we have that as a unifying thing, but we initiate action within our own individual community. And so only you, Andre, know exactly the requirements and the challenges of your community. So we can't, Sector 39 is not going to impose a solution on you. This is what you have to do. You have to take the methodology and make that come alive in your community. And I'm thinking that the way to do this is by building teams of 3. And they call that a troika, but let's just say a team of 3. Think of a 3-legged stool. Think how the stability comes. And one of the reasons that the milkmaid would sit on a 3-legged stool is it's always level, even on unlevel ground. So it's stable, even on unlevel ground. So that's quite a good metaphor. So think about how we might build teams of 3 that then build more teams of 3. and how we could populate a system around us so we begin to affect change on a wider sphere. So Andre or January or Deborah, or I mean, anybody, let's think about how we, so firstly, it's an individual choice. We have to go, I want to do something. I'm going to take responsibility. That's the point at which the design process begins, and which leadership through personal action begins, and which your commitment to the more I can stay within the earth care, people care, fair share ethic, then now my journey of permaculture is beginning. So maybe our first objective is to form a cooperative. Let's support this key function. You know, you're important. You're there. You know, Carolyn, Deborah, you're important. Your work that you're doing is important. Let's build a little support structure around you. That first three. Let me see, I'm going to try and share screen again without getting lost. Share screen. Share. Can we see that? I can't.
Yes, it is. We can.
Okay. You see the, yeah. So it's got the same problem again. Okay. Can you see that? Sorry, I'm still off.
Yes, it's visible from our
Yeah.
end.
Okay, good. That's it. That's it. Okay, so let's think about how we might then. I think I've said this already, but this is what I want to support us. I want to really reinforce this, is Sector 39 as a training body is a troika. It's three of us. It's right now, it's me, it's Stella, and it's Gerald. And we're holding a space here to help us organize and to start off an initiative in different places. In Rwanda, there in Gisagara, in Kakuma, in Achivali, wherever we happen to be. And we're going to examine each of these 9 functions, but they're going to have an order of priority, and we're going to begin thinking about food first. Everyone has an interest in food. So again, think about the process that you've done, Deborah. Think about how close this model is to your experience. It might be different, but that's what we're here to learn, and we're here to learn from our own experience. So this is the model. Reality is always slightly different from the model. But if we started to think about, let's strategically support the function of food, nutrition in our community. So we're going to set up a troika, a team of 3 people who are going to organize around food. First thing you're going to start thinking about as a group is, well, plants are central to growing food. Can we start a demonstration farm or garden? What are the native species around us? What seed sources are there? As you recruit new people into your group, those people then can specialize in looking at these different spokes of this wheel. They can focus their attention on those things. Now remember, this is a model. So the priorities, the shape of it, the opportunities might be different from where you are. But we do know that everybody's interested in food, and producing food involves plants. And we can recruit people into our team to support these key functions. There's going to be a second area of activity. And again, this needs a team of people to start thinking about using animals in conjunction with our plants. But we need to have a coordinated whole, which is why we have a management team at the heart of it. So I think there's 3 people here, there's 3 people here, there's 3 people here, there's 3 people here. It can, as people recruit to the network, they begin to have a defined role within it. And it may be that we'll learn so much if we can remember. So in the permaculture design course, we teach patterns, not detail. The detail will be your experience. The detail is the uniqueness of your own community. The pattern is, here's something that's kind of universal for all of us. And you'll have different challenges, different resources, different skill sets where you are, so that it will unfold in a slightly different way. But I think we have to be strategic and understand that we're going to have to think about, where's our food coming from? How do we manage that process? What skills do we have in our community? What resources do we have? What's the potential to produce more? Can we develop more complex long-term food systems? Can we have strategies to catch and store energy, to build soil, can we set up demonstration plots that are going to inspire other people? Can we use our social support function to go on expeditions? Right now, Stella is operating a social support function for Sector 39. She's gone on an expedition to Rwanda to interact with people who've done training with us in the past and seeing how those people are learning. That's reinforcing their behavior, making those people feel connected, and bringing back new information back to the hub. There's an example perhaps of how we might be working together. We have the internet, we have WhatsApp, we have Messenger, we have Facebook, we have all of these very powerful tools with which we can share information and explore and develop our connections. Have we thought about livelihood? Have we thought about trades and services? Could we even set up our own support services within our network? There's so many different skills we might need: finance, banking, recycling, barter and exchange. Imagine what an economy might look like is if we could, firstly, you're going to focus on these things in your own bioregion, but at the same time, it's interesting to explore, if we're all exploring these things, how much we might have to offer each other. Is this something, let me stop again. I've just been fascinated by this model, and I've kept coming back to it and asking myself the question: this seems like a viable structure, okay? So when I've looked at the United Nations funding bid, this is how I've looked at it very simply: is we can apply for $45,000, say spent over a year to 18 months, and that process would begin now with an outline bid. And if we're successful, we might have some funds for January next year. So the only way anyone would ever be successful to have a bid would be if we had a very clear plan and a clear structure. What United Nations want to see is that the goals of the project are defined by the end users. So that's, they're looking for refugee-led projects, okay? So let's think about how, and I talked about this last week, is the objectives of the project need to be defined, and if we're going to have a group from Nachi Valley and a group from Kakuma, the final outcome, the shape of that, And the priorities of that needs to be defined by those groups of people. Okay, but that's going to be supported by education and training that we can offer through the collective experience of the Sector 39 network. What we've learned over the last 6 or 7 years of doing permaculture in East Africa, and what you have learned as leaders yourself, as pioneers and as teachers, you can share that knowledge through the network to the people in the refugee settlements. And at the hub of that is Sector 39, to try and maintain a consistency and a process of that. And I'm also looking that we, Sector 39, form an alliance with a charity called Education for Development, which is just a small charitable body, but that will enable us to act as an enterprise and as a charity at the heart. So we could seek out funds that might support these outcomes. So we're not funding you, we're funding, the money would come through to fund those outcomes. And if we could create a learning hub in Kakuma, a learning hub in Nachivali, and then that would create training opportunities to draw in people from Teso, from Butambala, from Permo Africa, and to use those skills and knowledge that we have. And then it needs a coordinating function to hold that together. And that's what I'm proposing, that Gerald, myself, and Stella would try and hold that together. And whether we're able to apply for this funding or not, or whether we're successful or not, is I want to use the process to make us understand how we might work together. And what I know about anything is, if you don't ask, you don't get it. So if we can visualize something between us, then I think we could have a go at applying for this fund. We have to make our first expression of interest by the end of June. So we've got the next 2 weeks of our PDC to think about that more deeply. So, and here's a question is, how do we understand better what those needs and requirements are if we need a refugee defined project? So that's for all of us. Maybe Carolyn, you could give us some insight into that. You're working in those sectors, and then Andre, if you're there, or any thoughts? Is this making sense to you? And do you see how you might fit into this as a concept?
Okay, thank you so much, Steve, for giving me this opportunity. From the little experience that I've had in the maybe 1.5 years that I've been doing permaculture, I've really loved the fact that we can have a small village economy whereby you can almost produce most of the things that you use, We even learned how to make soap in Nakivale. And my take is that if the women mostly, because my focus is on women empowerment, if the women could be taught how to grow most of their food on their gardens, their food forest, their fruits, they have all kinds of things that will take care of their food and nutrition needs. Then I was thinking, right now, anybody who's in Kenya will bear me witness. One of the most expensive items on any Kenyan household is soap and cooking oil, So I'm trying to imagine that if the women could grow their own sunflower, once they grow sunflower, if they could be able to be assisted, they get an oil press, cold press, they could be able to produce their own oil. This same oil, the waste could be used to feed the farm animals, the cows, the chicken, and the same salad oil used for cooking could be also used to produce soap, organic soap. So I'm trying to, for me, that is the dream that I have, value addition for the farm produce. Another thing is the solar dryers. The women should be taught because a lot of food is wasted because of cost harvest losses. If the women could be empowered in such a way that in periods of plenty, they are able to process, dry their fruit, dry their vegetables, pack them very well, so that when that particular season for that product is not there, they have some dried and stored for use. So for me, that is my vision, or that is my passion. That is where I would like to go with the permaculture training. After production, what next? Can we be able to empower these women to be self-sufficient, to have small village economies, as opposed to these expensive things that are being produced large scale in factories, being tracked all over from Mombasa to the villages down here, so that there can be small, we used to call them what? Village production centers, cottage industries. Yes, we can have small cottage industries run by the women from their produce on the farm. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Caroline. That's very thoughtful. I like the idea of micro enterprise that really address where there's specific needs. Always to worry, to think about preventing monoculture. So sunflowers, yes. Biodiversity, yes. Other kinds of, I don't know, but I really, I think it's that being strategic, isn't it? And also seeing that what's the highest value things that we can create from local natural resources that takes the least amount of investment. But being very strategic so that it addresses needs. And I think that's exactly what I was just reading the fund again, the criteria, and I'm just organizations led by displaced and stateless people make remarkable contributions to their communities, but face considerable challenges accessing direct and flexible funding. Too often, they're excluded from existing networks of entrepreneurs and innovators, resulting in poor access to knowledge, information, and resources that could help them amplify their impact. The Refugee-led Innovation Fund proposes a fundamental shift in program architecture. It takes a grassroots approach whereby people who have experienced forced displacement are directly provided with meaningful financial resources and support to implement innovative approaches. So this fund allows for leadership from the grassroots, leadership from the edges. And I have an insight which may or may not be correct, but I feel it quite strongly, is that the ideas that solve our problems are far more likely to come from the edges, to come from excluded people, because those people who are most embedded in the current paradigm can't see out of it because they can't visualize that paradigm ending. And so the oil companies can't solve climate change because their only idea they really have is to drill for oil. That's what they do. They're not going to come up with a solution. The solution's got to come from outside of that. And that's why I see global leadership coming from Africa. I see global leadership coming from refugee settlements. I see world leadership coming from marginalized people who have not been the beneficiaries of the economic paradigm that has caused climate change. And for whatever reason, all of us are on the outside of that, asking ourselves, how do we foment the kind of, not revolution, but small and slow solutions that leads to absolute transformation of the system? I think permaculture has that potential. I think it's able to offer it that, to facilitate a global shift, but it comes from direct action organizations at a local level. And yeah, I find all of that. Well, I think that's the motivation that's got me this far, and that's the proposition I think that this PDC is putting out, what this lecture is about leadership is putting out, and what that fund seems to be asking for. It wants the leadership to come from the end users, and people like Caroline, as an educator, you can help find out. You've just defined very clearly the needs, the specific needs of those stakeholder groups. They need to be able to preserve their food better. They need to be able to provide cooking oil from their own endeavors, things which financially are expensive. And we know, because of the energy crisis, that things like that are going to become more expensive. The World Food Programme is not going to have the same amount of cheap carbohydrates to hand out, because there's droughts in the grain producing areas, and there's a war in Ukraine. We have to take this very seriously. Food is going to become expensive. Cooking oil already is, but it's going to get more so. We have to organize, understand the challenges that we're facing, understand the opportunities that we have around us, and then we need to organize to begin to fulfill those needs. And you can organize around any one of those 9 nodes in our bioregional map, but food's definitely going to come fairly high up the list. And let's look at the others. Let's look at the recruitment, the yellow one, which was, how do we draw people into our network? And maybe that's where we need to start from as well. That's another key starting point. So let's look across that whole. Remember, this is holistic problem solving. It's food, it's building, it's livelihood, it's health, it's communications, it's transport, it's future threats, it's emergency planning. We need to think about all of those things and initiate something around each one of those nodes. Yeah. Did you have a contribution? Is that Andre there? Anyone else with any thoughts on that theme, or am I going off on a tangent? I think we're in agreement about this idea. I'll be looking to remember, it's got to be led by the end users, so I can't force this on anybody, but we're offering to support you to move towards this objective. So I feel I have a buy-in from Caroline and Andre. Anyone else? Joseph, would you like to contribute anything? I know you arrived late, so maybe you don't know what we're talking about, but we'd love to hear from you.
Yes, I came in late, and you people were talking of something so interesting. More so what Sister Caroline raised. She raised a very, very good idea. What she is intending is very good, because you know, for us here in Uganda, more so in upcountry, women are they are left to be like the heads of the family. So in most cases, when you come this side of upcountry here in Uganda, you find that women are the heads, as some men are just there because most people this side, some of them are uneducated, and most of them are just there boozing, you know, taking alcohol. You find someone has like over 5 kids, some even 10. The person has nothing. There is no job. So what he only does is to go there and take alcohol, and you see women are really suffering with all these kids. That's why you see that most of the people here in our country, they even have a challenge to attain education because of those things. So what she's raising is a very good idea, and I really support it. Thank you.
Yes, I have to add something there if it is possible. Yeah, what I can add on that is it is happening here in Kagoma. When we are going in the community teaching people different things, some of them, like the women, most of the women here in Kagoma, they are widows, they don't have husband. So maybe she had or almost 5 kids or 7. So when we teach them about permaculture, they are starting cultivating their home garden, so maybe they can get food and vegetables. So the importance of permaculture here in Kakuma is to help those vulnerable children or women so that maybe they can be self-resilience. So to add on that point, even the women need support here in Kakuma or in even host community, because here we have those Kenyans. They are usually the women are usually going in the community searching in which way they can get food, and their husband rest in their home. So they are suffering. So maybe if we could have some group of women whereby we are going to go doing a round bin, maybe we are doing that activity, it can help our refugees and host community, because most of people here, they are suffering, very suffering. So that's I would like to add on that point. Here in Kakuma, they are very, very poor people, very, very widows, women. Maybe they can even support, they need support only.
Okay, thank you, Andre. That's desperately sad to hear, but we understand how these situations then become entrapping for the people. And again, that's sort of a collective. So actually, you're giving a very good example then about the end user defining the need. And I think through your understanding and connection, and through Caroline, we can begin to define perhaps the end goals of this project, because it has to be, they want it to be refugee led. So, and obviously it needs to speak directly to those needs and to support those individual women who are going to be the focal points that we build the structure, or that network begins to form around. There are always those people who are a kind of a social anchor. They already are acting as a food support group, a livelihood support group, and we can we cluster them together to support that and help them understand that they're collaborating towards the longer term goals. But gosh, I understand it's a very, very challenging situation, and that's great work that you're doing. Simon, you've had your hand up.
Yes, thank you for this wonderful opportunity. Now, to me, much of the emphasis that we have to put on, majorly on food production and security. Women are majorly left suffering in their families as people who are producing food which is supposed to be consumed by every member in the family. So we as teachers and learners of permaculture, I really bring it to back of my mind that some of these skills and the principles should be impacted to women, because when you come to this side of East Africa and Africa's right, much of the women are left to do much of the domestication work at their homes. They are the ones to produce food which is consumed. They are the ones to provide labor force in terms of food production, which is really very tedious for a woman to do, but it becomes tricky and challenging to even the youth themselves. So much of this knowledge should be impacted to both women and the youth, because at a certain time, they will learn the skills that they will use to produce some crops or some cash crops that will help them to provide the basic needs that they need from both school for the youth who are still learning. Those ones, they will be in a position to acquire the skills that they will use to acquire some money through the knowledge of the permaculture and the skills and the values that we are to put into our communities. It will help them to fight against all what they need in their lives. Likewise to women. Women should also be impacted with much of these skills, such that as they are the major key people in families who are producing the food which is consumed by every member at a home, some of these skills should be given to them through us, the permaculture teachers. They should be given that skill. And then Caroline talked of how we can bring the aspect of drying food such that that food can be consumed in a long run in the time of scarcity. Yes, it is really true. Here in the eastern region of Uganda, when it comes to time of harvesting potatoes, much of the potatoes, much of the sweet potatoes, let me say, sweet potatoes are dried up. They are dried up and then they are used during the time of wet season. And that one is really a good preservative that has been occurring here eastern region. And I've seen most of them even have ended up beginning drying up cabbage. They have started drying up cabbage, the eggplants. Such things have been dried and they are kept for consumption in a long run. And the other aspect of oil, where she talked of oil, to me, basically on health situations, I really bring the aspect of these women to be engaged much on GNATs production, because there is a bit, GNATs are more better than the oils that we are using for frying these other things that can. Yes, and these things are being consumed by our ancestors. And when you look at them by that time, our ancestors were, it was really something very energetic, and they were too healthy. As you compare the situation of health of people of today compared to those of long ago, really, it was not something you can't compare of today, where they were using soda ash liquid, which was so good, acted as a medicine for some of these diseases that we are incurring in our lives due to the use of these other oils and the cooking methods and the types of foods that we are eating, which are not so nutritious to us. Really, to me, to the back of my knowledge, those skills of drying things should be given to both women and the youth for future use. And the aspect of knowledge and the aspect of leadership. Yes, with leadership, really, there are very many issues that we are to learn with leadership. Leadership itself, with the delegation, one will not sacrifice his or her own resources that you, the one who is delegating that work to that person, will not be in position to provide to the people that you need him to go and do the service that you would have rendered to them by that time. So Sector 39 really has done great thing to people by impacting that knowledge to them, and the leadership skills should also be given to the permaculture leaders and what it permaculture leaders and learners of this session, such that when they go to the communities, one, they know how to present themselves. Two, they know how to socialize with others. Three, they know what they are going to do at the field at the time that they have presented themselves to their community, such that the community can be changed. And then the other one is we teach them the aspect of the climatic changes that have occurred. The climatic changes that have occurred. You see, rain pattern has changed as compared to the rain pattern of the ancestors that I used to hear. They say at this time you find rain is coming. At this time, rain has gone off. At this time, all the big trees that we used to see have been cut off because of the struggle for fuel, for domestication at home, So it is really embarrassing that we are seeing our climate has changed, and it has brought series of effects to us, both to our health, to our soil, to our crops. Very big challenge. Now I saw some message of how sweet potatoes are dried up. That one will remind me of the topic that I talked one time of the post-harvest handling processes that should be told to our mothers at home. Sweet potatoes have been brought from the garden. After they have been brought from the garden, they are peeled. After peeling, they are sliced into smaller pieces, and then they are spread on top of the tarpaulin for drying up during that time of under the sunshine during the time of dry season. And those sweet potatoes are the ones that we are using apparently as source of food for break. Others even use it for lunch, as well as to cassava. Even cassava, it is the same process, and our cassava has been exported to Rwanda. That is what they are consuming from Rwanda. It is the dried cassava from Eastern region and Uganda at large. So all those skills should be impacted to women as well as to the youth for their future use, and for them to have the skill of micro scale projects that can help them. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Simon. Some very good points there. Caroline, please. You're welcome to go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Steve, for the opportunity. Now, um, Simon, you've given some very, very good insights, and I think I'll make an effort to visit you back there in the village. Now, Steve, when I talk about sunflower oil, I observed something some years back. I visited some part of Tanzania. You know, sunflower takes a very, very small space on the shamba. So what the people in Tanzania and their area they do, they they grow the sunflower along the edges of whatever paddock that they have grown their crop. So you find that along the paddock, separating one paddock from the other, they've grown the sunflower along the edges. And the women in that village do not buy the oil from these big manufacturing places. They harvest their sunflower seeds, they dry them, and when somebody runs out of cooking oil, they just take their sunflower seeds, dry them somewhere, and casually walk to the mill and come back with their cooking oil. So it is not monoculture. It is, it can be done. Then another thing, the fund that we are discussing, it is talking about refugees. Last time when we were uh, teaching teaching women about permaculture in Nakivale, I remember I had a session with the women, which was entitled Opportunities for Women in Permaculture, new opportunities for women. So during this session, I sat down with the women and we discussed on various activities that the women can do. And, they had very, very good ideas. Something like mushroom, having a growing mushroom. And mushrooms are a delicacy. Most people, in the towns, they don't have them. They sell at premium prices. And I can imagine that it is not even apart from the seed, mushroom production would not be so expensive down in a place like Nakivale, because what happens is that they would just build, you know, an adobe house, a mud house. They roof it using thatch, and they are good to go. So maybe I'll go through my notes or go through the report that I wrote, because they had some um, very good ideas based on their environment, on just some of the things that they could be able to do, to alleviate the poverty that they're experiencing. Because down in the refugee settlement, I was there, and it is a bit sad because I was meeting graduates, a woman who has got a diploma in mechanical engineering. She has her papers, but because she's a refugee, she's just there wondering where her next meal is coming from. There was also one I met, some young man who has a diploma in, I think, agriculture or something. But because you're a refugee, you're forced to stay. Yeah, you're forced to stay there, and those skills are not really being used. And you have to rely on handouts from the UN, and the handouts, would not last you even a week. You see. So we sat down with them and talked about how we can harness, the resources the available resources within the camp, you know, how they can use, because they have small plots. They can do vertical gardens, you see. And my belief is that with the resources that they have, you can start from the known to the unknown. We can be able to change lives even in the refugee center. So I will look for that report, maybe refer to it so that I can share it maybe in the WhatsApp group about some of the opportunities that the women, you know, felt that they can be assisted to start. Thank you.
Okay, these are wonderful contributions that we're having, and it's exactly how perhaps we could start to conceive a project that is shaped by the refugee, shaped by that experience, and then that can filter back then into a program which we can directly support and fund those initiatives, because that's what this fund is about. So yeah, I really I was at a new hand, Simon.
I'd wanted to put more emphasis on refugee camps.
Okay, yeah.
One of the philosophers said, "Go where people are. Go where people are. See what they have. Help them to help themselves." So, majorly in those refugee camps, there is much of scarcity in food production, and most of those people are malnutritionalized due to that scarcity. So it is our effort, we as the permaculture teachers and those mostly near those refugee camps, to at least impact more knowledge on food production, the health aspect, such that they would be in position to fight against those serious diseases like kwashiorkor, which is majorly a disease that can bring a child to be malnutritionized and loses his senses and everything. So it is our effort to see that much food production has been put into them, knowledge is to be given onto them, and the small plots of land that they have can really help them to produce something that they can use for the home consumption. And it will be portion to help them to fight against those other diseases that are caused by malnutrition. Really, it is so painful to be in that kind of a state of life due to the political arenas and insurgencies that have been caused by other people who are angry of such kind of life. It is really bad. It is really bad. And the other aspect is on mushroom growing. Really, mushroom growing is something very nice and delicious to eat. But question comes in is how to produce, where to get the media. There is that rooting media that will guide the mushroom to do what? To germinate. Even us here in Tapa, we have got that view to produce the mushroom. It is our inspiration that mushrooms should be even grown during dry time. And the knowledge is now required. The knowledge is now required. I heard of Caroline talking of mushroom. Yes, that knowledge should be shared amidst us, and then we spread it to the communities. Some lectures on mushroom growing. I can do it. I can do it through the help of maybe Caroline also can bring in. I can make it on the lectures on mushroom growing, and then I tap on WhatsApp group, such that every leader of each group should get that skill, and then we put it into practice. But now, tomorrow, and I don't know where they can get the spawn. It is called a spawn. A spawn is the one that brings that mushroom. So that inspiration is good, except only we are waiting for some of those materials that are used locally to be harvested, and then mushroom growing will kick off from Tapa. Thank you.
Thank you, Simon. And look, I think what you've said there, you've illustrated exactly how our network can function. Because you have the desire to grow mushrooms. Between us, we have the knowledge how to do that. And if we can establish our system, the one thing you don't have is the spawn. But once you do have it, you can then propagate from that. So there are many kinds of mushrooms.
Actually, Steve.
Yeah.
Talking about that, Irene is really good at that. So probably one of those days we could link them up.
Thank you for that, Gerald, and that's a great suggestion. And just in the last couple of minutes, I think what I'm thinking of, and I want to put this, I want us to use our design process for us to maybe work on this bid to look out. But also I'm wondering it's our educational process, and maybe our academy, we could, as we finish our PDC, we could have practical sessions and, focus on a single thing like that each week, because that's not something we've done on this PDC so far, but it would be really nice to focus on a different thing and to create an ongoing dialogue around growing mushrooms. Again, it could happen in the WhatsApp group, but yeah, we've now explored this format, and we have now this as an idea of how we could share more practical sessions. So yeah, thank you for that. That's and to get these really specific priorities is really good. So we got something to focus on. Okay, we've got about 2 minutes left. So would anybody else like to contribute anything, or we can begin just to say goodbye for this week, and thank you very much for everybody's contribution. No contribution is too small or unimportant. It's just so great to see your faces there. Wow, what another amazing session. What a journey that we're on. And just to keep reaching out there and make people feel that they can be part of this process. And let's think about each of ourselves as leaders in our own way and our own style, and how we're trying to inspire and bring people into permaculture through our actions, and long may we continue. Thank you, Joseph. Thank you for your nice thoughts, and I look forward to seeing everybody next week, and we shall remain in touch. We have our WhatsApp group, and people are welcome to join into that. And
regarding the group, unfortunately, Deborah has dropped off, but simply, you can simply share the link, and then anyone can click and join it. So I generated that link for people to easily access.
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll keep sharing that.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Okay.
Thanks, Steve. It's always a pleasure.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye, everybody. Thank you.